The fact that you experience discomfort where you are, it's a hint that there's something misaligned. Could be the wrong job, the wrong relationship, the wrong place. But there's something telling you, if you don't jump into your purpose, if you don't take that big step forward into the raging river, your big calling, it's scary, but it's like Spirit is going to come behind you with a 2x4 and hit you on the head. So you can do two ways. You wait for Spirit to hit you with the 2x4, or you jump. And I think a lot of clients I work with, they come to see me when they've just been hit. But it's really like Spirit's like, hey, you're important. Wake up. I care for you. I care so much. I'm going to kick you into something big, right?
Guy here. My epic guest today is Angell, and what a beautiful human being. I really enjoyed this podcast. One thing I've noticed when we run our retreats and our events is one of the biggest challenges for people is that they don't know what their purpose is, and actually being able to lean into trust and really get back to the essence of the truth of who they really are when embarking on what their soul is calling forward. And it's all well and good. I have podcasts on here that cover all sorts of amazing conversations, from channeling to mystical experiences, near-death experiences, quantum physics, you name it. And I love diving around down the rabbit hole. But ultimately, there needs to be a grounding, there needs to be a practical approach to how we live our lives, where the rubber meets the road, where we get out of our heads, get into more of our hearts, and actually take the steps forward to embrace life fully and all that comes with it. And I feel through Angell's own personal experiences, he was a very successful entrepreneur, to actually where he talks about taking his own mask off to see who the person is underneath, to the phenomenal shamanic work he is now doing. Yeah, it's awesome. This is a podcast with a lot of wisdom, a lot of things that I think you can take with you and apply. Yeah, be sure to listen to it through its entirety, because it's all in there for you. If you are enjoying my podcast, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, all these little, if you think the episodes are worthy, of course, because all these things help. Share it with a loved one or friend. And if you're feeling frisky, be sure to leave a comment below as well. Tell me where you are in the world. I'm loving it. It's great. The podcast is reaching more and more people, and it's because of you and I together, it's happening. So anyway, much love from me. I hope I get to meet you in person somewhere in the world in 2025 and onwards. Yeah, see you soon. Enjoy this conversation with Angell. Thank you. Beautiful. Angell, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be with you, my friend.
So quick question for you, mate, just to get the ball rolling. If you were at a intimate dinner party right now and you sat next to a stranger and they said, what do you do for a living? How would you answer that?
Oh, that's a really good question. I always hard time to answer it, but I would probably say something around the line that I work with ancient healing modalities.
Now, I'd be very curious then. And what do ancient healing modalities look like? Because I feel we've certainly lost a lot of that wisdom in our modern Western lifestyle.
Yeah, we did. It's coming from ancestral knowledge from people all around the world that have lived in deep connection to nature, the land, the cosmos, the elements, the animals, the plants. And that's through deep observation and deep listening, we're able to find guidance and healing for their lives. And as we modernized the world, whatever that means, as we moved away from nature in the way we live, in the way we experience it, even as we now more consume nature for our own needs, but we don't really have a holistic, reciprocal relationship with it. We've lost that wisdom partially. And there are still people living close to nature, indigenous people around the world that are living in ways that are more aligned with that and still have those stories and this connection. But yeah, it's not something that is still as widespread as it used to be.
Mm. It's fascinating because I don't think we're even aware of it, are we? That's one of the challenges, that it's not even in our
No,
awareness.
we're not. We're like, I was sharing with someone the other day, say we're like zoo animals, but we're born in the zoo. And if you take an animal in the wild and you put it in a cage or even in a nicer zoo with some space for it, those animals experience depression, they experience illnesses, problem with their mind, their emotion, their spirit probably too, and their bodies, very much like what we experience. But if you take an animal, one of those same animals, but within a few generations born in the zoo again and again, those animals are more balanced. They're more somehow okay, mentally, emotionally. Now, are they okay? Are they really healthy? That's the question. It's a bit who we are. We're born in a world that looks great on certain aspects, and maybe that we don't really challenge it as we grow up, as we are teenagers and young adults, until we discover there's a lot of problem that come with that separation from nature, with progress, as we call it.
Do you feel then at this time in history that we have become so separate from it that there's an innate partness that is yearning to connect back to that wisdom that we've lost? Hence why there's so much change and upheaval at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely an illness. Maybe we can define that illness or look in more detail at what that is, but there's definitely suffering, discomfort in a society that has never been so abundant and easy for people. We have machine to wash our laundry, and we have cars, and we have a lot of things that seems to ease daily life, but somehow we're not living more happy than 100 years ago or 200 years ago. There's a lot of metrics around that. And yeah, there is progress of medicine, and there are many things that are, you could say, well, it's better, right? But we have lost somehow a connection that is necessary for us to feel balanced and connected within ourselves, with each other's, to live in harmony with each other's, which we seems also to lose quite recently and more, and to live in harmony with the rest of the world, the non-human world. And nobody will deny that we don't live in harmony with it.
No, absolutely. And with your journey then, I know you come from you were in a corporate background, you were a successful entrepreneur, I believe, at one stage. And were you aware, were you like a person born in the zoo generations down and then woke up to this? Or did you always have a spiritual yearning and pull towards a more connected life?
Yeah, I always had it. I think we're all born with it. We're all born with that spark and that connection. We're all born with capacity to see more than what we see with our own eyes, to communicate with trees, with stars, with animals. And then we lose it, right? Because we are born in a world that carry different stories. Our families, our education system, the whole world we live in, tell us it's not true, it's an illusion, it's not real. And then we close down those doors in our brain that are open towards other realms. But for me, it was always there. As far as I can remember, very little, very connected to nature, always felt the presence of spirits, was always able to see things. My parents never challenged it. They always let us be with whatever was unfolding. They let us explore nature. We spent a lot of time in nature. We spent a lot of time in sacred sites built by humans also. And yeah, I guess I still got taken by the system in some ways. Got a PhD and did my own business and worked for a big corporation. But the suffering was always there. The suffering of separation, the suffering that somehow this life I was living was not the answer to true happiness, inner fulfillment. And I became practically in my mid-30s, I guess.
Wow. Were you aware at the time you were suffering, or did you feel like it was just accepted? Because I feel that's a very common problem that I see
That's
a
a
lot.
very good question. Yeah. I think I was aware of certain aspect of my suffering, like anxiety or lack of sleep and stress, things like that, but not in a way that this is not normal. For me, it was just, well, this is life, right? If you have a job and if you run a company or if you have a PhD and do all those studies, yeah, it's going to come with stress. It's going to come with anxiety. It's going to come with joy that it seems to be fading most of the time. And it's kind of the deal, right? You want this life that comes with it. And I think it comes to a point where you don't really often question it. You say, no, this is normal. This is just normal. And Buddhism will tell you life is suffering. That's true. I'm not saying there's no suffering in life, but I think there are additional forms of suffering that are brought by the way we're living today.
1000%. I always use the analogy of, see, I grew up and lived in my life, and then in my early 30s, I really started getting into wellness and health and studying it and everything. And I remember removing sugar from my diet. And when I reflected back on my entire life, I had never actually lived a life without sugar. It had been, you drink soft drinks when you're a kid growing up, you're having all these things. And so it was just insidious in all the foods that I was eating and unaware. And it wasn't until I removed all that sugar from my diet and went through a detox and come out the other side, for the first time in my life, I was like, wow, that's what it feels like to have that mental clarity, to have that presence of moment in this moment. But for the whole chapter of my life, I didn't even know that was like, it just wasn't aware of it, which is mind blowing. And I feel that's what's happening. And it's the same for us now. So my question to you is then, at what point did you really start? Was there a spark? Was there a pain point that made you start to look at the way you were living your life to shift into what you're doing now?
I think there was always this back voice telling me, this is not, you're living a lie to some degree. And because I was always doing meditation and things that have always been in my life, I was quite aware of this voice and the other voice, the heart voice or the soul voice, however you want to call it, right? The more fleeting yet strong and clear voice. And then as I climbed the corporate ladder or starting my own business and started ticking more boxes of success. Okay, done this, done that. Now I have this. Now I live in New York City, and now I run my own business, and now I raise $50 million, and now I have 300 employees. It was like, oh wow, all of that was happening, and internally, that was going like this. So the externally was going like this, and the internally was going like this. So the gap that was probably this became really big. And that's what I started feeling really strongly. And that's what made me really question, where is this going? Like if I look 20 years from now, 30 years from now, I could see what my life would look like internally and externally. And I didn't like what I saw. I really didn't like it. And I had a big awakening or moments that really shattered me and made me completely change direction.
Wow. And were you married at the time? Do you have kids? Like, at
the time, I was not married, but I was in a long-term relationship. I think 5, 6, 7 years with that woman. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you mind sharing what those defining moments were? I think it would just help people, because I see so many people that are in that space now where they're fearful to move forward in a different direction, even though their heart and soul is crying for something different and they feel trapped.
Yeah, I mean,
stuck.
For me, there was a few moments, I would say, over a period of a year or 2 years, and they got closer to each other. It's like warning signs that come into your life, right? Suffering generally, and then warning sign, and things seems to start falling apart. But the big one was I was nominated as the Entrepreneur of the Year in the US at the time for my company.
Wow.
So it's a big award in New York City, and you have all the business community that is there, and the mayor of New York, and the whole big gala. And I came on stage with the two other nominees. There was three of us, right? And we had to make a speech about what we achieved and all of that. And I started my speech, and in the middle of it, the best I can describe is I was hit by lightning. It was just like something just shattered me. And I literally saw myself as an actor playing a role. That there was this guy that was living through me for now 10 years. That was a character. It was not me. It was this other guy. It was this weird guy that's basically saying BS. Basically he's saying things that he doesn't believe in. And it's almost like my face cracked out of me, and I was wearing that mask. Like my face was a mask. And I could see I was behind a mask. And I could see that what I was sharing was a lie. It's not a lie per se because what I was sharing was true, but it was a lie compared to what I was experiencing inside. And me trying to convince the 500 people in the room that they should be wanting this, that this is the way that one day you'll be on stage where I am and you should aim for that, was the biggest lie of all. Like literally, you should not pursue that. In fact, you should stand up and leave the room, or you should laugh. Right? And I just ran out of the stage, fell on the ground in the back. And that was the beginning of me quitting everything, literally walking away from every single things in my life, my job, my relationship, my apartment, anything I own, just all of it. It was the beginning of it. I could not, like it was now, it was the mirror was shattered. It's like you're seeing the truth and you can't escape it anymore. You can't unsee what you've seen. There's no way back.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing. I feel we can all relate to that. And that's then the challenge, isn't it? Taking that step to, sadly, it's pain that tends to drive it forward to really.
Yeah. I mean, that's necessary, I guess. If you're in the right place, you're not going to experience pain, right? If you're where you're supposed to be and your soul is supposed to be, there should not be discomfort. The fact that you experience discomfort where you are, it's a hint that there's something misaligned. Could be the wrong job, the wrong relationship, the wrong place. But there's something telling you that's your inner compass. The pain, in many ways, is a great teacher for that. And one of my teacher, grandmother Sri Crow, she's a Native American, and she says, if you don't jump into your purpose, if you don't take that big step forward into the raging river is your purpose. It's your big calling. It's scary, but it's like, yeah, spirit is going to come behind you with a 2x4 and hit you on the head. Right? So say you can do two ways. You wait for spirit to hit you with the 2x4, or you jump. Right? And I think a lot of people, at least a lot of clients I work with, they come to see me when they've just been hit.
Yeah.
Or it's been this, now it's a 2x6 or a 2x8. It's a bigger. Right? I'm laughing. It's not funny, right? But it's really like spirit's like, hey, you are important. Wake up. I care for you. I care so much. I'm going to kick you into something big, right?
Yeah.
But in the moment, it's very unpleasant usually, right?
Totally. Yeah. And looking back, before the big baseball bat came, it was almost like a feather tickling you, trying to attract your attention, but you're too busy to listen and push it aside. So
yeah,
what did you do then? You walk away from everything. Do you go, I'm going to become a teacher of ancient wisdom? I mean,
no. No, but nobody decide that.
I'm kind of tongue in cheek, but yeah, how did you get from there to what you do now? Because I mean, you have a whole sanctuary and everything. Like, it's incredible what you're doing, mate. Like, honestly, I mean,
well, I had to heal. I had to find answers in places that seemed to have answers and leave the place that didn't have the answer, right? So I left and I went on a very long journey, a quest, the hero's journey, or you do your descent. You descend into your inner world. You face your monsters. You get in touch with your pain. And I spent a lot of time in India, in Nepal, in Sri Lanka. And then I ended up going to the Amazon in Brazil and Peru, meeting teachers, masters of those ancient traditions, sitting with them in ceremony, listening to their teaching, listening to their cosmologies. And it is when I arrived in Peru after years of self-healing, and I was still doing some consulting job, trying to make a little bit of money, because I left with nothing. It's not like I left, I was having money or anything. And then when I arrived, found my way in Peru and starting sitting with those teachers and masters, I was home. Like literally the first day I arrived, I sat with them, I listened to them, and I felt like I was with family. I felt like it was my old uncle and my old grandfather, my old grandmother that was sitting there. And I cried when I arrived, when I met down. I went into deep grief. And I thought a lot about that sadness that came out of me. And it was the grief of me having missed something I didn't know I was missing.
Huh.
You know, if you lose your partner, you lose something you love, you're going to grieve, right? Because you're losing something but here I was grieving something I never had. And I grieved that. I grieved the fact that I was not born around that wisdom, that I was never taught that wisdom, that it took me 35 years to finally hear someone that seems to make sense about its view of life and the cosmos and the spirit world and the human world. And I could very easily explain me in very simple words why I felt so much pain, which I went to a psychotherapist for 3 years and never heard what this guy told me in literally 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I felt home. And so I started studying with them. I spent 6 months a year for over 10 years in Peru.
Wow.
Meet my teachers and study really deeply until along the way, people started asking me and said, "Hey, you look better. Can you share with me what happened? And can you teach me about this?" And I started teaching. I started offering healing work because my healing, I guess, gift opened in the same way. And then open a healing center, open a shamanic school, all that came down the line. But I never saw that. And I was like, okay, this is what I want to do. In fact, still today, it's not like, okay, this is what I want to do. It's just happening that way. And I'm following this river. I'm just following it and trusting that is where I'm supposed to be right now.
Yeah, how beautiful. Let's dive into what then is required to heal, if that's okay. And we can unpack it a little bit. But like, what were I guess, seeing all those incredible different cultures and learning from different ancient wisdoms. You mentioned Nepal, you mentioned India, you mentioned Peru. And you also said to go and like investigate the pain and sit with and be with it, because we touched on it off air slightly, but there's this whole kind of spirituality at the moment. I feel that we're all trying to reach for the stars, ascend, connect to spirit, but we never, it feels like we're running away from the very things that we should be addressing and going inward to truly heal. And that connection will come naturally from our healing.
Yeah, I mean, we are in a culture that is all about individuality and escapism. And we escape through modern drugs and alcohol and Netflix and distractions and very busy social life. So we have a lot of drugs available for us to escape, to not feel. And it's no wonder that there's spirituality as it is today too often carries those wounds of individuality and escapism. And a lot of modern spirituality, what I mean by that is not grounded in tradition, not grounded in ancestral knowledge, basically not proven, but by the ego.
Yeah.
Is all about escapism. is all about this transcendence, because the world is about that. It's like bigger building and higher stock market and more money and bigger cars and bigger house. It's all about up there. And it's also a religious perspective. A lot of it is about going to the Godfather or whatever people see that. Ancient traditions, spirituality around the world, not just in Peru, is about the descent. The transcendence, the transformation happen as you descend. You're falling upwards, to take the words of Richard Rohr, who is a Christian mystic, interestingly enough. But I say you have to fall upwards, but you're falling.
Wow.
It's a fall.
I love
it's
that.
Not a rise.
Yeah.
Right? That's the title of his book. It's a beautiful book, by the way. So we have to descend. But to do that, we need the tool to do it, because I think it can be very scary to descend without avoiding the pain. It's very easy to descend with avoidance, to think you're just with your breath and your body and just being in that trance state, which can be very beneficial in some ways. But really the descent is the descent into the cave with the monsters, the cave with the self, with the shame, the cave with the self-hate, the cave with the inner critic, the cave with the separation and judgment of others, right? You have to be willing to go there. But to go there, you need teachings, tools, rituals, ways to do that, so you don't die there, so you're not running away from it again and again, right? And ready for me healing, to answer your question, it's not about, okay, I'm carrying, let's say, shame, or I'm carrying lack of self-love, or I'm carrying parts of me that experience separation from the world, from others. It's not about, I want to let go of that or transcend it or get rid of it. It's about, I want to be in good relationship with this part of me. The whole spirituality from a more indigenous perspective is about sacred reciprocity, relationship. So the problem is not really the grief or the anger or the hate. It's my relationship to it. It's me being able to sit with it, to really look at it in the eyes and to learn from it. Instead of making it a monster that's far away from me. It's like a piece of the soul that's exiled. You can't have connection to it. You have to kind of bring it back close to your heart. And then you become whole. But you cannot become whole if you don't recover the whole, all right, with an H. Whatever is missing, whatever you feel is gone, whatever you feel is in the back, that's part of your wholeness. You can't move forward without them. And so the way to heal is to be able to bring that back into the soul, because soul is infinite and soul is love and soul has space for that, in order to discover the gift of it. And shame, when approached that way, can become a gift, and self-hate can become a gift, and anger can become a gift, and whatever pain then become a gift, because it's the real teacher. And we can listen, and then we transform, and then we heal. But it's kind of healing, as the way we see it, is a byproduct of really what we are doing. It's not what we are seeking. If that makes sense.
It does. Yeah, absolutely. And do you feel from your experience that we need to learn from these experiences to enhance our soul? Like, because they say that we come into life to learn lessons and expand and evolve ourselves. But
yeah, so there.
Yeah,
yes,
because I was just going to say, because so often we're running away from the lesson, like you say, to then remove the pain. But then we're never going to get the lesson if we just have it removed for us. I'm just curious to know your thoughts.
Yeah, my teacher in Peru often says, life, this ceremony that we call life, I'm going to call it life, but it's a ceremony really, is a kindergarten for souls. So the souls come in, it's like a kindergarten, right? In kindergarten, the kids are running around and fighting and falling and playing and laughing and then crying again. So the souls are coming here on earth from that perspective, from that tradition, to experience life in this body, in that 3 dimension, in the earth dimension, in order to learn something that they cannot learn without that incarnation, without that contracted form into matter. And so any attempts to escape that, to refuse the physical experience, to refuse the human experience, is bringing you away from soul transformation. Potentially can even make your return faster, because, but if you don't want to be there, then go, right? But there is this knowing and longing in the soul that is present in it, the quality of the soul, that it is infinite, that it is eternal, that it's coming from somewhere else, that is going to return somewhere else. And sometimes the desire to ascend, the desire to transcend human suffering or not experience this life, is the soul that maybe doesn't want to be here, doesn't fully want to experience what it's experiencing right now. Once again, only because we do not have the right tools, rituals, ceremonies, cultural context, eldership, so many things are missing in order to be able to say yes to that experience fully. Once we have that, life can become, even through its trial and tribulation, can still become a joyful experience, even if it's a roller coaster sometimes. Right?
Yeah, of course.
So there's this quality in the soul, right, that is looking for that. And also the soul, before it descends, that's from also the same cosmology perspective, kind of look down on the earth, saw a problem, saw a pain point, saw a need for medicine, and descended for that. And that's our soul calling. That's our mission. That's why we're here, right? We have a mission too. There's a mission for the soul itself to transform, which is very individualistic in many ways. And nothing to do with the rest. It's about its own self-evolution, but also because it's connected to a greater mission that's connected to all the souls and all the spirits of the world. The soul, in order to really blossom in many ways, needs to find that calling that it has forgotten, but it knew when it descended, right? When it came in the belly.
So I guess then the question that comes for me, and I'm asking more for everyone listening, is how do we find that calling? What are the steps we take? Because I constantly hear, I don't know my purpose. I don't know why I'm here. Everything's just, a struggle. I want to change, but how do I find my calling?
Well, there are so many ways to answer that. And we need probably a couple of episodes just to answer that specific question. And probably a year. I have a year program just on that.
There you go.
So, no, I'm not saying my program. I just say it's not like a easy, quick answer, right?
No, I understand. I totally understand.
I think there are certain common aspects of the soul calling that are present in every soul calling, which is to bring some kind of medicine for the collective, for the others. It's always connected to service. It's all about itself. It's coming to bring up some resolution, some evolution of the collective. So it's always in service. That's a good way to know that's the calling. And there are many ways to it. You could be composing music and write beautiful music. It's not about being a healer. You could be a teacher in a high school. You could be a mother, right? So it's in service of something else, right? It's in service of children. It's in service of humanity, your community. It could be in service of the land, the animals, the trees. So there are that first in it. The second aspect of it, which I think is really important on the way to find it, on the way to kind of try to nurture it, is that very often, I would say pretty much 99% of the time, what emerges from what seems to be the calling is very unexpected. It's not like your life has been so far. It's not going to be the same at all. There is a turning point that some people call an awakening of consciousness. I become conscious of something else that is within me. So very often we kind of know a little bit about it because we have been hearing hints from spirits, or we have had a feeling, but it's often very scary, the calling. It's often very different, and therefore it's out of comfort zone, out of what the ego mind has comprehended so far and understood and worked with, out of that. And there is often fears, resistance, challenge, the mind challenging the vision. And that's also for me a good sign that there is something there. That said, sometimes people are born with the calling and they know it, and they say, I always wanted to be that. It's been 40 years and I've never done it. So sometimes people are more aware than others, but sometimes when they start diving into self-healing and kind of removing all the layers and the stories on top of it, then they discover it and it looks a little bit different. What we can only know is, are we in alignment in this moment in time? That's the only question I ask myself in the morning when I pray, is to ask Spirit to make sure my action, my words, my service, everything I do and everything I touch and everything I interact with is in alignment for the highest good of humanity and the highest good of the self, of my soul unfolding. And every day, I hope that it's a little bit closer every day. But there's not a moment where it's like, okay, this is it. My teachers say, once you've done that, once you know, once your mission is done and you're aligned, you're called back, you're done. So as long as you're breathing, the simple fact you're alive means that you're not there yet. It means that you haven't been recalled. So there's still healing in sense of transformation. There's still undiscovered potential that can open, right? So It's a life quest. I'm not arrived. Nobody's really arrived, aside from enlightened beings, awakened beings. But I've never met once. There's none, right, that I know of that's alive, that I truly believe are. So we're all in that process, to a certain degree.
Yeah, beautiful. And I'm curious as well, like, how long has your center been open and what have you witnessed in that time of transformation with people? Do you find that more and more people are coming, more and more people are hungry for this change, and more people like, what do you see?
It's been 10 years now, a bit more than 10 years, I think 12 years. There has been a big shift, I think, since the COVID epidemic. I think that's kind of threw everybody off a little bit because people had to work from home and the whole world kind of shut down in certain ways. And a lot of people that maybe were immune to feel the pain or immune to question what was going on started questioning their life, their job situation, where did they want to live, when all the things that look very safe were not anymore, right? Maybe my job is not that safe. Maybe living in the city is not that safe. Maybe even food supply is not. Who knows? Traveling is not anymore, right? So a lot of things that we considered for given in our world started to fall apart. And that increased pressure on the soul to transform, right? Any crisis, either it's individual, family crisis, country, world crisis, they increase pressure on souls to step in, right? If you're already in service and you're already aligned, it's not going to change much for you. But if you're not, there's like an external pressure, okay, wake up, something to be done. And I witnessed that a lot. Not only in the number of people coming, because we had more people coming for what you would call, from the Western perspective, a midlife crisis. A midlife crisis is the 2x4 by spirit from a native perspective, right? It's like you're hit. Your soul needs to kind of wake up. And also the type of people interested in that work. I think for me, that's been the biggest interesting shift. Like, who is coming? It's not 12 years ago would be your traditional yoga, meditation people that were doing healing. You were preaching to the choir. The last 2 years, 3 years, I've had people working at the State Department in the US. I had people running big corporation, like with no spiritual practice. I had people working on TV. I recently had someone, I would not mention the exact name of the company, but he's the head of research for one of the largest vaccine company that
Wow.
was pretty famous a few years ago. He was the head of developing that vaccine, right? One of them is a scientist. And somehow spirit came and hit him on the head and said, there's something really in store there. And somehow he found his way there, right? And I started feeling it, which really made me smile. I was looking at that. I was like, maybe the awakening of the transformation is not coming to come from the crowd, from the choir. It's going to come from those people that spirit, God, universe, life, whatever you call it, is speaking to transform because they are in that environment. They are in politics, or they are in that industry, or maybe they work in the army. Who knows? I recently was talking to someone who was in the army flying Black Hawk helicopters, right? And they have this huge transformation, spiritual one, awakening. Yeah, and I can see that it's almost like spirit is lighting up with those little dots all over the matrix. And the chosen people, it's everyone, right? The chosen people very often in the scriptures they are not the priests. They are not the one that are going to the temple every day. They are the poor. They are people that are usually excluded. They are people that are different. So spirits works in mysterious ways, right? But that seems to be happening more and more. Unexpected people, I would say.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. That's so exciting when I think about that, because quite often I often hear that I ponder on that people are going, I'm just going to get a bit of land, I'm going to grow my vegetables, and I'm just going to drop out of society and head to the hills. And part of me thinks, I think about that sometimes, I think, wow, yeah, that's nice, that's great, but that's a very me. It's not a we. It's not a in some ways, a contribution to the whole. And if that's what we are here truly to do, if we are all from a unified field that brings us together and we are all part of the same ocean, then surely we need to be in the trenches sometimes and actually making a difference to the contribution. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And everyone is different. So it's not because some do that and others do that. We really don't know. Ultimately, we have no idea, honestly, to be honest, what it is. I truly believe that the great transformation we're on is going to come from unexpected places and people. And it's not this way or this way. It's going to be a third way that doesn't exist yet. I don't think it's the model of just returning to the land, which is living. Neither the model, okay, it's just living, modernizing with a lot of science our societies and our cities. I think there is a third way that is in the belly, that is not born yet, but that it's preparing itself and that it's not really under our control in some ways. It's something bigger that is moving us towards another way to be on this planet, another type of evolution. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that means for all of us. I don't know. There are a lot of questions there. Nobody really knows, but I think the prophecies, at least from Native people, the rainbow prophecies, those prophecies, first they unfold over hundreds, if not thousands of years. They don't unfold in 5 years or 10 years or 50. They're very long in their unfolding. And they are read from our mind perspective, from what we like to see in the story, right? What we like to think they talk about. But I think very often the stories, they unfold, there's trickster spirit. There is unexpected thing. In all the stories, there is something comes and it's very different than anybody expected. And I think that's how nature very often transforms itself. A new species is born, or there is a shift in something that nobody saw coming. And that's what creates renewal. Renewal is that unexpected gift that completely disrupts every mind, every life that is present. Either we're spiritual or not, doesn't really matter to life and to spirit. It's just a bigger thing that's going on through all of us at the moment.
Yeah, of course. Of course. And just as we come to the end of the podcast, and thinking of the listeners then, obviously not everyone can get to your sanctuary or depend on where people's lives are at right now. What would you suggest for them that they could lean into? Is it as simple as creating more stillness in their life to start to simply spend more time in nature if they are feeling stuck off purpose?
I mean, that is spirituality 101. Yeah. Connection to land, nature, but in a way that is in reciprocity, not just because you need something. So what do you give back, right? So it's a two-way street. That's how spirituality works. That's how the teachings are. You take an inhale, you take also an exhale. You give and you take. So it was a tree. You cannot just inhale. And we do that when we breathe with the trees, right? We're exchanging with them. We're working with them without knowing it. So yeah, because our world is so noisy and filled with distraction, right? Our computers, our TVs, our phones, and because from the ancient cosmology perspective, rebirth, new beginnings come from the unseen, come from the unknown, come from the belly, come from under the earth. When you plant the seed, right? You plant it, you wait. You don't scream at the soil every day. It's going to come, right? That first world is called Ukupacha in Andean language. Ukupacha is where everything was born and everything is born. Everything is coming from. That's your space of your dream. That space is silent. That space needs rest. That space needs quiet. And then something emerge, and then you engage the mind, and then you engage action. But we need to cultivate. I always tell people, even 30 minutes of silence in the morning, like literally you do nothing. You don't even meditate. You just sit. Try that. And you can start seeing all the crazy mind and wanting to do that, wanting to grab your phone, right? But that's the point, to purge the system, to purge the reflex that you've learned. Because if you do that every day, I can bet money on it. Within 5 to 7 days, something is going to start happening. Because you're going to start being in contact with the place of being in you that doesn't need to do anything. And that place is wise. But it's quiet. It's not loud. Yet it has all the knowledge. And that's the paradox of it. The silence contains everything. So yes, start by this. In nature, start by reconnecting to the land. Even if you live in an apartment in a city, plant a seed, let it grow, watch it growing. It shall teach you. The teachings are very simple, but you need to be disciplined around giving time and space for that listening and for that connection.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, mate. Where can people find out more about your work, Angell?
Well, they can go on my website, thesanctuaryheal.com, thesanctuaryheal.com, and have a podcast and a lot of free contents, a lot of teachings that we offer to people so they can connect with me or on social media.
Oh, fantastic. I'll make sure the links are below. I didn't realize you had a podcast. I'll be sure to subscribe and check it out, mate. I really enjoyed today. Thank you for coming on and sharing your time. That was truly fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed the conversation too. Thank you everyone for listening to.